he survives.
It's very different from any other thing I've done with Nicholas before. I mean, normally you have a psychology, you have a story, you have family, you have certain things happening for the character. And this time we were dealing with a frame that was slightly different. It was not a person, it was not a human being, it was basically an animal that wanted to be free and find his way home. Not knowing where home was also a problem. But we approached it in a sense that, I mean, we knew that he was not going to be human. That means he's not talking, but he's not expressing himself either in the face. He's not happy, he's not sad. And that was obviously slightly difficult for us in the beginning. Just a little thing like sitting, doing stuff with your hands, all of a sudden it becomes too normal, too empty. And we wanted it to be extremely neutral and at the same time something happening internal. So the other characters could start interpreting, meaning somebody thinks he's God and other people think he's Satan. Other people think he's just a slave. But we just had to jump out in it, and so our discussions were not so much about what was driving the characters, was much more about what is the feeling of this film.
Said he was from hell. Maybe that's where we're going.
Like any other thing, if it's in his way, he will kill it. If it's just walking behind him, it's fine. Obviously, it changes slightly. The boy gets smarter and smarter. The boy starts saying that he can talk and he can understand what I'm saying, which he can't, of course. It's something he's doing for himself. So it becomes closer, but not in a classical way. Father-son relationship is much more mythic.
So he survives. Why never loses?
There's been a couple of different ones. The first one was more classical, I think, more classical storytelling. A real person getting loose, getting free, finding revenge in a city. There was a woman at a certain point, and there was, classical plots, things in the story. And the next draft was much more cleaned out, and eventually it became much cleaner with the version we're doing here. So it kind of changed during some months. I think I was more inspired. I never done that before. I never done like an animal. A lot of actors think about an animal when they work. I never done that before, but this time we actually thought about like a gorilla in a zoo to kind of stay with that focus, that you never look down, you never fiddle with anything. You just, in a zoo, it just looks at you. It keeps looking at you, and we thought that was a very interesting approach for people to look at, because what's wrong with this person? Why is she like that all the time? So it was the approach is much more in the animal world, I would say. The guy who did the eye was a fantastic guy who's been working on Harry Potter for many years, and I think it was 20 minutes he did the eye, and sometimes we have to do it again if we had too many fights. If I was sweating too much, then it would come off. No, he was really cool. I mean, but the actual thing to have that eye was just so annoying, because if you lose one eye, you lose your depth perception. That means that things looks much closer. You become very clumsy, and that was one of the reasons why I don't fight a lot with a weapon, because it was too dangerous. I couldn't control it. In this situation, it was difficult because, as you can see, a lot of the time we're not wearing a lot of clothes, and the weather was -degrees when we were shooting it. So everybody else was in big coats and hats, and we were walking around like that. So it was some long, cold days, definitely.
Now you've got your freedom. What do you plan to do with it? I could use a good fighter like you. We're God's own soldiers, warrior, heading for Jerusalem to reconquer the Holy Land.
We don't have to talk too much to each other. I mean, we know each other pretty well. A lot of the work, we already done that before. We already talked a lot about it before, and we know the psychology of the characters. But this time, we did talk a lot more than normally because it was a different thing. It was a film that was up here in his head, and I had to kind of get it out of him. Every night when we were finished, we had to get some more out of him to know what we're going to do tomorrow. But it's a very easy way of working. We know each other, as I said, very well. We're very different people, but I think we know each other so well that we don't have to do a lot of things to go in one direction together. It's very hard for me to say. He's doing different films. But he still has the same approach to his films. I mean, he's older and I'm older, but it's still the same gasoline or the same fuel that drives him. It's, as I said before, it's very much in here. I mean, if you read one of his scripts, you know it's not going to be that. We can put it away. It's got to be something else. So he's still using the same technique or emotional approach, if you want. But obviously he's getting older and he's got different ideas now. A lot of memories from the pushes, screening. No, I mean it was a great experience in a director actor work. But we also worked a lot with people who were not actors, people who are from that environment, and all those memories are fantastic because they were fantastic people and really, really good actors in the sense that they could portray themselves and have it under control and repeat it. So a lot of episodes came out of that, which was extremely inspiring for an actor. You just had to hang in there instead of produce, just hang in there with the real people. That was amazing. It's just great to work with people who have such a fresh energy to it that is so real, and then you get inspired yourself to become real again and not becoming the actor. That's cool. Character comes later. First of all, it's a story. If it's a story that's interesting me, or if it's radical enough, if they want it to be really brutal, it has to be brutal. If they want it to be very beautiful, they have to do it. If it's a musical, it's a different way to approach it, of course. But it's always the story, and then the director to listen and see if we can communicate, and if there's something more in there than there is on the paper. Then I always find it interesting. It's a way of working together that we obviously enjoyed, and we wanted to do it again with some different things. When you work together with people more than once, you get comfortable. You become more brave together. You dare go places where you wouldn't have done the first time, and I think that's a very normal way of working. I mean, a lot of people do that. If you enjoyed working together, it's a normal thing to do it again. I think that the French directors I've worked with, I mean, one has been Dutch, or at least he has Dutch parents, and Louis, he's been working mostly in America. So I think they've been not so typical French, but obviously I work with a French crew, and I mean, besides the much better food here, I think they work the same way as we do back home. It's a big corporation and people are working together, so it's not so different. I never character the character. I don't believe in that. I find that a disease, and I find it not acting. But I can carry the momentum of the energy of the film back home. If it was a great day, then I'll have a great day back home. If it was a frustrating day, I will be fairly frustrated back home. So I do carry my work around, but never the character. So my kid has to call me 20 different names, you know. It doesn't work like that. I mean, I think you have to go into the character fast and leave the character fast. Sometimes it's easier than other times, but no, I don't believe in the other thing. I think it's something that the press and journalists love to hear about, but I find it very pretentious.
Quelque part au Danemark, Sven dit la sueur et Bjarne le timide, deux apprentis bouchers qui voulaient faire fortune.
I did a film called Boucher-Vert, I think it's called, yeah, and which was a very annoying character, very stubborn character. And because that energy was there for, let's say, 10 hours when we were shooting, I found myself using that energy as well privately because it was such a specific energy. And the same was a little with the pusher energy, the character there. He also had a very specific energy. That was kind of hard to leave it, but I wasn't the character, but it was kind of sticking on to me because you've been doing it for 10 hours. So I was glad to leave the characters when we were done with it. Really happy. It's a beautiful story, and we shot it right before we shot this one, actually. So we're all very pleased and hope it's going to get a life here as well and start traveling so people can see it. There's a lot of historical characters I find extremely fascinating, but they always end up to be big tyrants or dictators, so it makes me really weird. But I mean, Stalin would be interesting. I think maybe it should be somebody else than me, but Genghis Khan I found very interesting. I'll find a nice character as well. I haven't thought about that yet.